And here we are again with yet another episode of the Long Box Punk. That's me. I'm Chris. I'm the Long Box Punk. He is Kalyn Fultz. Kalyn, thanks for hanging out with me of Kinetic Comics. I'm stoked to have you on the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate you. What's up, everybody? I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, first, I know I already acknowledged it, but I need everybody else to acknowledge how freaking rad your wall is behind you. Every time I have any guests on the show, I can't help but oogle what's at the background and know it. Like I can see some of the bubbles, like the dialogue bubbles that are on there. Those are comic panels that you've got Mod Podged onto your wall, right?
That's right. That's right. Those 10-cent comics that you find at the bottom, at a comic book store, the covers ripped off, grabbed hundreds of those and just slap those on the wall, man, and just try to make some cool scrapbook looking, wall of just anytime I need inspiration, I can just dive into those panels, and I love it. Yeah. So maybe eventually it'll be the entire room, but for now it's condensed right here.
Right. It's the accent wall, as
That's
Martha
right.
Stewart would say. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Martha Stewart.
Right. Yeah, definitely take a lot of influence from her in my personal life here at the house. So, man, I seriously appreciate you hanging out with me, spending some time to talk comic books, talk some music, maybe even talk pro wrestling. Who knows where this is going to go? I'm just stoked to have you here. So I would love to hear a little bit of your origin story. So how did you get into comics? Like, how did you start creating comics? And then how did you eventually get to a point where you started Kinetic Comics?
Okay, all right. The origin story. So I guess like a lot of people, Saturday morning cartoons, man. Batman animated adventures, X-Men comics or X-Men the animated series. When I stumbled upon that, I was instantly hooked, and it was off to the races from there. And so always consuming, superhero series. And then when I was old enough and I happened to magically just find myself in a comic book store when I had no idea that these things existed, I was like, wow, I'm in the show. You've got the superheroes on the wall, it's real life. And I was just enamored by everything that was this pop culture mecca that was a comic book shop. And so started grabbing, just some random comics, and I was instantly hooked. And eventually when I got, into my teenage years, I tried to, keep up with the weekly series, and eventually got a pull list, because I had no idea about a pull list for the longest time. So if you don't know about a pull list, sign up for a pull list at your local comic shop, and that'll make your life a lot easier.
So much easier.
And fast forward to having half a dozen long boxes full of of comics. And I worked at a comic shop for a while, and
okay.
So being around all that really just had all this stuff going in the background. And I've always been a creative writer, short stories, poems, and all that good stuff. And one day it finally hit me. I got a really good, inspiration from a friend, and they were like, you could make a comic character out of this. And I was like, wow. It just hit me. It was like a lightning bolt. I can marry my love of comic books with my love of creating writing. And back in 2019, I started putting pen to paper to my flagship series, Shade. And fast forward to last year, I started Kinetic Comics to, have a publishing house to produce all my stuff through. And so it's been about just over a year of Kinetic Comics, and we're going strong. We've got Shade 1 and 2. Shade 3 has just wrapped up on inks. We've got another creator, Eric DaSilva. He's bringing his creator-owned series, Danger Squad, to Kinetic Comics, and that's going to be launching on Kickstarter at the end of September, running through October. That's right. We'll follow the pre-launch page, everybody. So yeah, that's Kinetic Comics, man. Kinetic came from, as I said, X-Men is my favorite show. Gambit is my favorite character across the board. I'm gonna make a name for myself today. So and I was just like Kinetic Comics, it just bam. And I was like, that's so cool. It's got to be taken. You know, I looked it up. It wasn't. I was like, that's mine, you know. And so I officially started Kinetic Comics, and here we are, man.
That's wild. So,
Yeah.
I mean, just like that, to go from like, I'm going to start writing comics and then into like, you know what? I got to have a outlet to like publish these things. I'm just going to start the thing. Like, that's so very punk rock of you. Is like, were you involved with punk rock previously? Is that just like a mindset that you've kind of had? I talk about the DIY mindset a lot, of like making books that you want to see, that, you know, have representation for who you are, and people that look like you or act like you or talk like you or have your background, or, you know, I want to do the thing. Like, I just need to make comics. I'm going to make comics. Well, I got to distribute them. I'm going to make a publishing house so that I can distribute them under the name. Like, is that just who you are?
Man, no. Starting out, no, but it is something that I had to become, and it's something that creating and writing a story, like literally taking just this ethereal idea in my brain and then making it something physical and tangible that I can pick up and touch and look at, and other people can be in their mind. That kind of created this confidence in this mindset. Like, if I don't know how to do it, I can fucking learn how to do it and do it myself. I don't have to fucking wait for somebody else to do it, or, you know, wait for their free time or them to even show me. I found out that I'm able to just do it. I can learn if I don't know how to do something and I want to do something, just go learn how to do it and then do it. You know, that's why a lot of people don't do this, if they don't know how. But once you learn how easy it is to learn and pick up something that you are passionate about, then it's fucking easy, you know? And so, yeah, I mean, I've always loved punk rock. I've always been, you know, a fan. But the whole, like, just, you know, kick the door down and do it was not something. I mean, I've always been a very, you know, what's mine is mine and go get what you want. But as far as like stepping out and showing the world all of this, that's not something that was always in. It was bubbling up, and I wanted to, but I just didn't know how. And then the comic book kind of creating this kind of helped me figure out how to express that energy and that want and that creativity.
That's awesome. It's very like, it's a thing that I don't feel like enough people realize. Like, it's 2024. If you want to find how to do anything, like literally anything at all, there's probably either articles, blog posts, subreddits, like Discords about it, which I've just only recently discovered. Discord,
Yeah.
like it's insane how many. I always talk to people like, how did you find your co-creator, your artist or your writer or your letterer or your inker, whoever, colorist, like how did you find those? And it's always different. Like, oh, subreddit. Oh, I was perusing on Instagram and I saw their art, and so I just messaged them. Or like, oh, there's this group on Facebook, and it's just like the amount of options that are out there. If you've got that burn inside of you, like, I have this story and it needs to be told, to like, suddenly it's really easy to then just have that drive and that motivation to like hunt down everything in all of the obscure corners of the internet to find what you need to find to make the thing happen. So was there like I always feel like figuring out how to set up like Kinetic Comics, the idea of that to me feels very like large and overwhelming, and just like there's got to be so much stuff, right? Like, is there like legal stuff that you got to do? Do you have to trademark things? Like, how does any of that even work?
Man, it was very daunting at first. But I had a few people around me that I had already been working with, that had kind of gone through the process before. Shout out Greenberg Comics, Mikkel Green. I love you, man. He really helped me kind of navigate how to kind of start that. And I had another friend that had a business. Like, yeah, it's my uncle. He's started so many different, you know, little businesses. He's like, it's really simple. And you really just go online and and you trademark your stuff. You see if it's trademarked, and then you go down to the county clerks, and you pay a little fee, and you write your name, and then you got your LLC or your sole proprietorship or whatever you need for that for your specific needs. It was a lot easier than you think it would be. It's a few clicks, a few website searches, and you're there, and it's like $34 to go down, to the county. You walk around the building. I got lost a couple of times. That sucked, but hey, you sit down, they ask you what you want to do, and you give them the name, and then you walk out and you've got a business. And yeah, there's taxes and that's stuff that you got to do, but that again, if you can learn how to write a story and learn how to create a comic, and you're all in this explorer research mode, and so you're already learning, and you're already like consuming how to do new things. And so it's just like you said, scouring the internet and finding little pieces and bringing them all together. It just, once the snowball is going and going and going, it's kind of less daunting to like, oh, well, I just found this dude on Facebook and, started this conversation, and I just sent him $500 to start inks. Yeah, I can just go downtown in my own town and, sit down in the court office and, start a business. And so that's kind of how it goes, man. It's not as, you don't have to be some suit wearing tie guy, with a briefcase and some expert knowledge of the legal system to start this. I mean, all that helps, definitely. Maybe not the tie and the suit, but yeah, man, you if you want to fucking do it, like you said, it's 2024. YouTube can show you how to do anything, literally. Sure. And I guarantee you've got a friend or an associate or a coworker that does know how to do something, and that's where you make networking, that's where you make connections, and you never know what friendships and relationships are going to come out of working with somebody like the artist on the illustrator on Shade. He's from Brazil. He doesn't speak, English is not his first language, and over the past few years we've become great friends, and I just found him on Facebook, man. I was so scared, and I didn't know how to find an artist, and I thought there was some weird thing, and I was like typing in like Google, like comic book artist, and then I just get on Facebook and I was like comic book artist for hire, and there's just all of these people are raising their hands saying pick me, and they've got all of their examples and all of their art, and you just just slide in their DMs.
That's wild. I've definitely heard that sentiment before of like, yeah, there's, there was a Facebook group that a buddy had added me to and whatever. And like, now that's my story of like, yeah, I have a buddy that's been on the show. He's a post-punk himself. And shout out to my brother, Ken. And like, he added me into this group that he's a part of like writers looking for artists and artists looking for writers. And like every time that I have some downtime that I'm not, that I'm actually feeling energized, I just like open that group and I scroll through, and it's just like post after post after post of people like, this is what I'm looking for, this is a style I'm looking for as a writer, or this is like this is my artwork, like hey writers, I know you're here. And it's just a matter of going through it and having the time to do that.
And it's very much having a full-time job and then doing this in your free time. Yes, it really is time management and figuring out when you have the time to do it. And we only have 24 hours, and there's not always going to be time to do it, but it is worth it. And if you want to do it and you want to create it, you will make time. But that shouldn't be doing art when you're fucking exhausted, because it's not going to come out good. Right. It's going to be shitty, it's going to be stinky. So like,
and that goes into like knowing your limits too.
Right.
And like when I first started the show, I was just like, give me the fire hose, like open it all the way. And I was just like, yeah, let's schedule interviews all the time. And very quickly I would get done with the interview and come out all hyped and jazzed. And I'm like, babe, I just talked to this creator, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah, great. And I was like, oh, you've been sitting here doing nothing but like sit on your phone for an hour and a half or whatever. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't do this 4 nights a week. And so now I've figured out, like, it took me 3 months, but I figured out, like the healthy balance
Yeah.
of, like these are and I'm treating it like a part-time job, even though I'm not getting paid. Cause it's like, I have to have that balance and that structure. Otherwise, I can get very unhealthy, or I can just burn the candle at 7 different ends
Yeah.
and like completely end up wiped out. And then I'm not doing anybody any good.
No, yeah. I totally have been there. I've tried to do it all at one time, and I figured out, it's kind of like working out. You don't work out the same muscle every single day, and your brain is a muscle. You can't give it, take 2 days out of the week of not doing whatever that thing is, and that really helps, kind of prolong and extend, that energy throughout the week to knock out all your creative work and, your side gigs and this kind of stuff. And
Yep.
don't take on too much at once,
Yeah. And
I
that's good, just like life knowledge to have. Not
yeah,
just with comics, but like just in general. Don't
just in general.
don't kill yourself. Like that's the one thing they always say. I see this post all the time. Like, if you could go back in time and tell 18-year-old self anything, what would you tell yourself? And mine would be like, stop working 80 hours a week. Like, just stop. Like, I did that, and I thought I was making all this money. And now in my late 30s, I'm like, why the fuck did I do that? Like, okay, so I bought like 2 extra concert tickets or whatever. Like, I have nothing, like relationships suffered, like
No.
all of those things were awful. And I was just killing myself working all the time. And now I'm just like, why? Like, I'm happily telling other like side gigs, like, nah, I don't need I'm not going to do the work. I would like the money, but like, I don't need to do that because I already have enough stuff going on. So speaking of somebody that has a bunch going on, we still have the scroller going for Danger Squad because Eric DaSilva, man, that dude is post punk himself. Had a great time talking to him. Might be coming back in October.
Ooh.
And like, so I just, anytime that I get to shower any love to any of the post punks, I love to do it. So tell me like how you and he connected to then have him bring his book to Kinetic Comics.
Man, kind of going back to that, scrolling on the internet and finding somebody on Instagram and sliding in their DMs. And shortly after I started Kinetic Comics, I got a message from Eric, and he was liking what I was doing, and he showed me his stuff, and he was looking for an outlet as well to bring Danger Squad to life. And so after actually a long, lengthy process of kind of feeling each other out and learning more about each other and learning about the story, his story and the comic story itself, we kind of decided, to move forward and bring him on board and become, a creator for Kinetic Comics. And so yeah, he was the first guy to reach out and liked what I was doing, and I really enjoyed his story. He's a father, and I really liked his Danger Squad idea and this whole Kids Next Door Scooby Doo kind of mash up. And I was like, man, I think this would really fit well with Kinetic Comics. And so yeah, we brought him on board, and we've been jamming ever since, and kind of creating and forming, how to publish how the rollout for this. And we've always kind of wanted Halloween to kind of be the time to do it. And so here, we're coming up on that. So here we are, man.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a great dude. And like we had, as we were talking, which if you haven't listened to that show, like after this one's done, go listen to that one. But I just had a great time talking to him because a lot of things that like a lot of his story is also my story, like the being a daughter dad and like doing the bedtime story thing and
Mhm.
just trying to celebrate wins where you can, and still having fun in the midst of all the everything else that's happening. It was just like, yes, like that positivity and like that fun and that energy that you're bringing, like, yes, please, all the time. Yes. So the fact that you two are getting ready to launch the Kickstarter for Danger Squad is just great. Like, and all the stuff that he's been doing on social media, like with the the takeovers and all that stuff, like that's so much fun. I love just following along with that process and seeing everything come to light. So
he's got a really I never would have imagined doing something like that for my I didn't think of that, and then when he presented to me and he showed me the first little episode of it, I was like, dude, this is so cool. This is so cool. Just the whole idea about it. And he's kind of hitting on a bunch of different fronts to kind of push this and make it really cool. And it's a total vibe. The Dr. Mystery is a total vibe that goes along with it. And so I'm here for it. And I can't wait for the official launch and to really pump this promotion into overdrive for the spooky season.
Yeah. Yeah, and spooky season is the best season. I don't care what anybody else says.
I agree with you. Halloween is my favorite holiday.
Yep, there's a reason that my branding is all about skulls and purple and all of that stuff. So that's Danger Squad. That's coming end of September, running through October. So I'm going to turn this guy off so that we can then turn our attention fully to Shade. Tell me about Shade. Like, is this the story that you had kicking around that finally you were like, you know what, I gotta find the guy?
Yep, this Shade is my first shot, my first crack at a comic book. It's the first idea. It started with the idea of what would the ghost of a spy's origin story would be. That was like the firecracker that lit the flame, man. And so and I had no idea how to do a comic book. I had no idea how to create. So I just wrote a short story. I wrote a narrative. And then I figured out, I was like, okay, I've got to piece this out. I've got to make this into a script, And so I started researching scripts and started looking at scripts and how to write a script. And so I took that short story and I turned it into a script, which was a task, but that kind of is, I kind of like that process of writing out this narrative and then, kind of as a movie, piecing it out, scene by scene, panel by panel.
Yeah.
So Shade is that. And it's kind of, the story obviously changes as it goes. And I created this character and then I created this world around him. And Shade is a supernatural spy. He's a paranormal espionage agent. He works for a secret spy network called the Guild of Shadows. They fight back all the uncanny, otherworldly threats that kind of threaten our just everyday life. And so they do this all in a clandestine cloak and dagger manner. They're off the books. They're not government regulated. So Agent Shade and his team of shadows are tasked to retrieve a relic of mysterious powerful origins. So they go on this Indiana Jones like adventure, and as people do, greed and arrogance get in the way, and things get going. And I mean, you've read the story, so I can't. I'm trying to dance around here, but yeah. So we just released Shade in March, officially in March, and so we just had the Kickstarter going for that. And so man, the Supernatural Odyssey is in full effect. We just got back the final pages of the inked pages for Shade 3, so those are looking great. So hopefully we'll be looking for a 2005 release date to be announced.
Nice. That's awesome. So when you wrote, it's interesting that you started with the narrative and then broke that into a script. And you're not the first guest that I've had on that had that process, but I don't think my brain works like that. I get like here's a burst of something. And
Mhm.
then I have a bunch of like just random paragraphs of just like shit that I got to figure
Yeah.
out if it goes together.
Same here.
Um,
I do that too. I do that as well.
so like when you wrote that narrative, was it essentially the first 3 issues of Shade, or did you like once you started translating it into the script, how did that translate into like page count or what it like issue counts or any of that stuff?
So I basically wrote the entire first arc of Shade,
Well,
um, just from start to finish, and I kind of like left the finish kind of open ended for myself. And then when I went to piece this out and script it out, I was like, okay, I was like, it perfectly broke down into 5 issues. So I was like, all right, we can piece this arc out into five issues. And so I kind of was like, all right, this section is one, this section is one, this section is another. And they all kind of like were perfectly their own little chapters of this arc. And so there was no page count to start with. It was just, all right, this is a panel, this is a panel, this is a scene, this is a scene, this is a scene. All right, this is a perfect, page ender, and move on to the next one. And whatever I'd set out for that end of the chapter is just however the page count came to be. And then, obviously you need a certain amount of pages. So there was times that I had to go and, trim some fat or, put on some bulk of the story and make that page count right. And so I maybe, pulled from the story, or like you said, those random paragraphs that you have, in your notes, you go and find them like, oh, this is a great idea.
yeah.
And so that's kind of how I did it. And I don't necessarily suggest for anybody starting out to kind of do it this way. This is just the way that me not knowing how to do it kind of flung myself into it. But it is very easy for me to just write really quickly the whole idea as a narrative, hardly anybody, just straight, just
Yeah.
instead of like, okay, Shade looks this way and he's got a disgruntled look on his face as he pulls, his nunchucks out of his, utility belt. It's much easier just to be like, all right, this, and this, and then going back and putting on, and making it the right way for the artist, because, the artists they don't need all this, what he's thinking and all. They just, what's he looking at? How's he looking? What's he doing? Give him the bare minimum. And so, for me, that's the way that I do it, because it's much easier for my brain to just flow all of the idea out instead of trying to piece it, and break it up. And that breaks up my creative flow. So that's just the way that I do it. I don't suggest it for, whoever. I have started to try other routes of just, actually scripting it out as I go. And I do like that as well. So, there's no one way to do it. There's only your way,
Yeah, there's no right way. There's only like your process that happens. So how did that translate then once you found your artist, and his name escapes me? I thought I wrote it down and I didn't.
Ram Silva.
Silva. So once you found Ram, how did, like, especially if English isn't his primary language, how did that communication start? And like, how has that been working together to create the issues?
So yeah, Ram's first language is Portuguese. And so we communicate through Facebook Messenger, and whether that translates for us, which I mean, it does. And he speaks English, but you got to learn how to communicate with each other, because it's not like he's not going to understand we're going to understand, yanking your chain, things that we, slang terms and all that. And we just have to speak very plainly, and we have to speak very directly. And I can't speak the way that I would, just be talking to my homie and be like, yo, dude, he pulled, this crazy shit out of his, off the top of his head and blah, blah, blah. He's not going to, that's just not going to translate why should it? And vice versa. And so there's a lot of times where I have, can you say that again? There's a lot of, can you just say that again? There's just patience and understanding
Mm.
is the basis of any relationship in your life. Patience and understanding, and communication. And so we've just learned to be patient with each other and to use visual aids. I just a lot of times pull up an action figure and pose them the way that you need them, or draw the layout, on a stick figure for his visual reference. And so it's been 4 years or so, and we've become really good friends, and never met, just Facebook Messenger, and creating this cool story and bring it to life. And we've really become really good friends and created a very cool relationship. So shout out Ron. I love that man.
Yeah, and I love like his style with that first issue of Shade is just like so freaking cool. Like it's so rad. And if you want to see more of it, I did a review of it that you can, man, I'm just plugging everything. You can go watch the review because it's also here on YouTube. But that was like after I read that first issue, that you just like completely just you're like, hey, I got a book, you want to check it out? And I was like, absolutely, I want to check it out. And then after I did, I was like, hey, you want to come on the show? Like, we need to talk about this. Because it was just like the whole idea of it was just something that felt very fresh. And I love the team dynamic and like just the sarcastic quips that they have back and forth. Like sarcasm is definitely my love language. And there are people out there that would argue that's not actually a love language. I would disagree with them because
they'd be wrong.
Right. I would agree with them, but then we'd both be wrong. So I'm a very sarcastic person, as my wife will attest to. So like a lot of that did you work with an editor as you were like processing through the story, or is everything like straight coming from you and Rom?
Everything, the whole script, every idea is straight from me. There was no editor on book 1. There's no editor on book 2. Straight, just raw dog. Like, I didn't, at that time, I was so fresh, I didn't know. I had some people look over the script. I had some, hey, what are your ideas, and so I kind of took that, but it was all me, dude, just going for it, and Rom, would add, his little creative flair and style to the illustration and the visuals. And, we'd kind of find a balance. And he, if I didn't have something, he'd kind of fill it in. And a lot of times it just fucking worked, and the more we work together, he's like, he knows what I'm looking for. And he kind of knows what the story is and what the vibe is of the story. And so he's really easy to, like, all right, this is something good. And, a lot of times he'll add something that I didn't even think of, and it just works great. Yeah, no editor on this. I did bring in an editor finally on book 3. So, and I do suggest to have an editor because they will, just help you make it sound and feel so much more. They will tell you what you need to hear. They're like, and this guy was brutally honest with me. He's like, yo, you need to step it up on this one. It's basically just this, and there's no challenge, there's no hardship. You gotta make it challenging. You're making these promises for the reader, and then you're not fulfilling them, and all this that I needed to hear. And so get an editor. It's not going to hurt it shouldn't hurt your feelings because it's something creative, and there's no criticism when it comes to creativeness. Yeah, it might hurt, but be open to it. And if it's a professional, they're not gonna, it's not gonna like rake your feet over the coals, And so this editor, his name is escaping me at the time. I'm so sorry, but he's also a letterer, so he's going to be the letterer for Shade 3, which is super clutch. But yeah, he really helped improve 3 and kind of like reminded me, to get back to what Shade should be. So yeah, that whole sarcasm, I had to, I love the Deadpool. I love the Spider-Man quippiness, but I didn't want to be over the top. You
Sure.
know, I very much put my own sarcasm into it. A lot of it was like, what would I say? What would me personally say in this situation if I was a supernatural spy, you know, on an adventure and you know in a mountain monastery, you know, some desert,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Totally perfect and easy for you to picture yourself in. Yeah.
it's surprisingly it is. Surprisingly it is. And so yeah, I put a lot of myself into Agent Shade, and as it went along, his own personality, you know, came about. And it became really easy. Like, oh, what would he say in this situation? And I really wanted to, you know, kind of showcase that kind of aspect of him because we see a growth, we see a change, and the sarcasm, unfortunately for you, somewhat dissipates as the story continues because he's getting more serious. He's taking himself
Mm.
more serious. You know, he's taking um what's going on around him much more serious because when you're, you know, the best of the best, it's kind of hard to think something can touch you. You know, you kind of get cocky, you kind of get arrogant, like you know, callback. And your arrogance can kind of blind you from, you know, from your true self and how good you can actually be. So sometimes we need a little reminder of that, and you know, who knows, that might be, you know, getting superpowers or a bullet to the chest, or you know, who knows.
Yeah. It's the old like stay humble thing of like you can't, yeah, no, and even like knowing your limits could be part of that too, instead of assuming like I can do whatever. Something that you said that I think is not common is people being open to feedback. I've had a bunch of different jobs. It's hard for me to make up my mind, and part of that is ADHD, part of that is I just have a lot of interests. And so I've had a bunch of different jobs, and one of them was like providing feedback to enhance like a live production experience. And I I was told early on the key to giving good feedback is to be very opinionated. And I don't like in the moment I needed to hear that. Now I don't know that I still agree with it because as somebody that craves feedback, like I always want I don't want to get stuck in I'm doing this thing and everything I'm doing is awesome and I'm like this yeah, I nailed it, nailed it, nailed it.
Right.
You don't know if you actually nailed it or if it's landing unless you get feedback.
Yes. Yes.
And like even in my regular like 9 to 5, I work at a bank. I'm always talking to my managers like, hey, I need like up real time feedback. Don't just wait for a monthly touch-ins or whatever. Like, I need you to tell me now because I'm gonna forget and it'll make me better now.
Yes.
Why should I wait? So I think it's a unique trait when I talk to anybody that is like, yeah, no, give me feedback. Like I want that feedback. So is that like, have you always, was that a thing that you had to grow in or have you always been open to that?
It is definitely something I've had to grow in. Growing up, you know, I think most children and teenagers take criticism super harshly and we internalize that and we make it a part of our personality. But then when it comes to something creative, you know, it's kind of like I find it, you know, some artists are gonna like that's my baby, you know, any feedback is gonna, you know, hurt my feeling, you know, anything I don't that is a possibility, and a lot of artists do go through that. But you know, comic books, it's I'm telling a story because I want you to read it, you know, and I want you to find it cool and I want you to like it, you know. And so my idea is not necessarily everyone's idea of cool. You know, if
Mhm.
I'm trying to grab everyone, you know, I've got to think outside of my own coolness, you know, and what is cool across the board, you know, what is dope across the board, and you've got to take that into account. And sometimes, you know, you are going to make something cooler and better when you have somebody telling you like, hey, this isn't it,
Mm.
this could be better, I see where you're going, add this, take that, trim the fat, it's such a helpful process. Sometimes, yeah, you do have to remove yourself from that cool thing that you've made, but knowing that you're making it for others kind of helps you remove yourself, and knowing that you're going to make it better, because you can write an infinite amount of drafts. You know, it doesn't have to be your first. At first I was scared to ever write I was like, this is the first, like, this draft is, it's final. This is it. This is it. You know, like you said, this is so cool. This is so, I nailed it. But then I reread it. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. This is a plot hole. Misspelled this. This isn't that cool. This is lame. You know, oh, this is so much cooler. Oh, I read through my notes and I found something that would fit perfectly here. You know, so I can't exactly remember something that Rick Rubin has his really cool book, The Creative Way, that he just released not too long ago. It was like last year, and he talks about criticism and how much it helps the process. And it really, really does. And you never know what an outside person, especially with a trained eye and a trained ear, is going to bring to the table. Because you're so deep in your story, you're so deep in this whole, and sometimes an outside, you know, point of view is really going to help launch it to the next level.
Yeah. A lot of times it really does take that outside person to go, it's right there. And you're like, oh, I was busy looking here. I didn't even think to look there. And yeah, it's wild to me whenever that happens in just like regular life. And I'm constantly like, I'm an external processor anyway. And so I'll talk through stuff with my wife and like and she'll just be like, idiot, it's this. I'm like, yeah, like it's so simple for her to just be like, yeah, there it is. And like, I had no idea. I wasn't even looking that way. And that's true in a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's more than I want to admit.
Mm-hmm. But I think so for all of us, man. I think so for all of us.
Great. Thanks for that. So you mentioned that you may or may not have a punk rock comic that you've put together, and I want to talk about that because obviously I love punk rock and comics, or this show wouldn't exist.
That's right.
So what's that all about? What do you got cooking?
All right, so I have a punk rock mini comic named Bandito Red. So Bandito Red is a punk rock hip hopper, and he is based on a real life friend of mine, a local punk rock hip hop artist by the name of Mike Bandana. Shout out Mike. Great music. He's got this song called Punks in a Mosh Pit, or Pimps in a Mosh Pit.
That's awesome.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's PIMP, Punks in a Mosh Pit. Wow.
Okay.
We're going. It's long. And so I really gravitated towards his music, and I loved it. And I came across this inspiration, this writing prompt, and it was like for just a punk rock anthology. And I was like, okay, I got to cooking, and I kind of created this character. And I hit up Mike. I was like, yo, you want to be a comic book character? And he's like, fuck yeah. And so I got to going, man. And so I just created, this character, and he's in a little 3-piece band with Styx and LP. And so they're doing their thing. They're rocking out at this little dive bar, and some shenanigans happen, and he gets superpowers. And so the superpowers kind of are very much, like Banshee-esque. And so this is Bandito Red.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. That is Mike's look. That is totally Mike. He's got the hockey mask. And so, yeah, man, he gets this shock, to his system. And now, like, the most important thing in his life, his music and his bandmates, are now thrown up into jeopardy. And, what are you going to do? What would a punk rocker do? Is this going to be, your last song, or is this going to just take you to the next level? And so his bandmates just do what they have to do. And, they continue on, man. And it's a really short little, you know, mini comic. It's like little manga size, and I fall in love with these characters. They're super cool. I've got a really cool local artist named Steven Beezer who just brought his gnarly style to this. This is so grunge. It's edgy. It's just black, white, and red. That's the colors of the whole thing. So yeah, man. I'll have to send you a copy and see what you think about it.
That's sick. So do you have plans to expand that, or like doing your own like punk rock anthology?
Yeah, dude. So I recently talked to Mike, and I do want to. This is like book 0, and so I would love to do a full length, you know, comic and really flush out, you know, this character in this world and the story. And I've got other characters that I've got brewing and I've already created for them. So that right now has kind of been, you know, kind of on the back. I wouldn't say back burner, but we've got things that are just plowing through and already in the works. And so I left that. I was like, I created this 6-page, you know, this idea and that was it. And so it's totally open to go forward. And I really want to bring Mike in as a full writer on this. So it'd be me and him writing. And, you know, he writes his own music, you know, and, you know, he's an amazing lyricist, and so he's a great writer already, and so we'll just be bringing that to, you know, a new medium for him, you know. That's awesome. So I'm excited where that's going to go.
That's cool. And so because it feels natural, how would people find you to keep up with all things that Kinetic Comics is working on and pumping out?
You can find me on X, Twitter, whatever the fuck, or Instagram. Both of those are Kinetic_Comics, and then obviously Facebook, Kinetic Comics. Yeah, you can find my stuff there. Send me a DM, you know, reach out, message me. You can find all the art there. I'll send you links to the website to pick up whatever you want, whatever you need. And yeah, we're just gonna keep on rolling, man. Keep on rolling.
Sick. And I'll make sure to have all of that stuff here in the video description so that you don't even have to think about it. You can just tap to expand and then tap the link and then fully get in full stalker mode on social media to be up to date with all the things that you've got coming. So you mentioned something that I can't not address. You mentioned that we might talk about wrestling. And so here we go, my friend. All right, so give me the rundown. Where are you as a fan? How are you like a lifer that you're like predicting everything that happens? Are you like a tribalist?
I have Too Sweet tattooed on my thigh because too sweet for life.
Yep,
that's right. Yep. Dude, I wouldn't say a lifer, but I mean, 7 years old.
That's a lifer. No, yeah, that's
all right. Dude, so I just TNA came to Louisville. They were at a local venue and they did Emergence, their pay-per-view, and they had a second night. They did a couple of TV tapings. I got to see for the first time ever my favorite wrestler of all time wrestle, Jeff Hardy. I got to wrestle him 2 nights in a row. His birthday was Saturday, so they sang happy birthday for him, and you know, I got to, you know, tell him happy birthday and, you know, see him wrestle on his birthday. And so that was a dream of mine, dude. I am a wrestling fan through and through. AEW is coming to Lexington like in 2 weeks, so I'll probably be there at Rupp. I fucking love pro wrestling, dude. I wanted that was for the longest time, that was the only thing I ever wanted to do. When you asked me what I wanted to be as a pro wrestler, there was no like, oh, I want to be, you know, a firefighter or this or that. It's like, I want to be a pro wrestler. That's what I dream of super kicking somebody in the face. Just to run the ropes, I wouldn't need to do anything else in my life. If I could run the ropes once, like, yeah. So big wrestling.
That's awesome. So I same. I was exposed when I was like 4. I don't remember it, but I've been told the story enough times that it feels like it's a memory. My dad had taken me to his barber shop, and as he was getting his haircut, the barber was like, what is he like? I have a TV, like one of the old tube TVs with the, antenna and the foil and everything. And he was like, I can adjust this and get in like a wrestling channel or whatever. My dad was like, sure. And so he turned it on, and I have figured out after the fact that it was Ric Flair and somebody. I have no idea who the other person was, but I was just, as soon as he turned it on, I was just standing in the middle of the barbershop and like that was it. Like I figured out how to find wrestling on the TV that my parents had upstairs. And so like it was one that you would turn it on, and they don't even make this is a thing in the 80s. You would turn it on and it would flip through the channels until it found one that had a signal.
Right.
And the first channel that had a signal had wrestling on Saturdays. And so I would go into where we had our TV in like the den area, and I would flip it on and I would just watch wrestling. And apparently I would like flip myself over and do all the jumps and stuff because my mom has told me like, yeah, I went up because I heard I was banging and crashing. And I went running upstairs and you were watching wrestling and trying to do the moves and stuff. And I was like, yeah, checks out. Yep. Yeah. So I was always hardcore into like WCW. My mom didn't like WWF at the time because of all the Attitude Era stuff.
Yeah.
And then, but like she and I used to watch it every Monday night, and we would flip between the two. And then like we went and saw Sold Out, the WCW like 99 when it was in Cincinnati. And I got to see Vampiro, who like, I love Vampiro, like the dark, the edgy, like the Misfits look. I was all about it. And then Sting was always my favorite. And I normally don't do this, but like I have a shrine next to my desk of when I met Sting. And then I have like all these little, that's an OG Wolfpack figure. Oh yeah. No. Yeah. And then yes. And then I lost my mind when I met Lita.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, but I gotta figure out my setup again. But no, I'm a huge wrestling fan. And it's funny, like I used to get made fun of all the time because it was like, it's fake, right? And I'm like, no shit. Yeah. And so now I'm just like, oh, cool. Like, what's your favorite movie? And they're like, oh, I love blah, blah. And I'm like, fake. Like, I don't even let them fit. Oh, yeah, you like movies? Fake. TV, fake.
They're not really shooting each other, right? Just as much, right? Like, I don't understand the disconnect. Yeah, dude, my first exposure, my first memory of wrestling, I was watching wrestling, or it was on at my mom's house. They were watching it, and I come in the room, and there's this man in a wheelchair. I have no idea who anyone is. This is my first exposure to wrestling. Never seen it, never heard any friends talk about it, never seen anything about it.
Yeah.
I see this man in a wheelchair with a neck brace and a suit. And then I see this man in a shiny golden button-up with these sunglasses and this fade. And he's doing this thing with his eyebrow. And then he hits the man in the wheelchair, which is Vince McMahon, and knocks him over, and he starts bleeding. And I start bawling. I start crying. I'm like, Mom, why is he beating up that man in a wheelchair? And they're just laughing. They're just cracking up at me. And I guess that traumatic experience of seeing a man get hit in the face while in a wheelchair and then bleed profusely ignited my passion for pro wrestling. And I was hooked. I love it. I've never stopped. I remember watching every single episode of Raw, being able to stay up an extra hour late on Mondays to see it. Like, dude,
did you do the like you and a buddy, you would tape the pay-per-view and then bring in the tape, or like did you do the tape trading?
I was the only wrestling fan around. So no, I didn't have anyone to do that with.
That's rough.
So no, I missed out on that. But and I still am one of the only wrestling fans in my group, but I get to bring, I'm slowly bringing in my friends to the community, and then they some of them finally get it, and some of them are just like,
Oh, Russ, there he goes again.
I was so happy that we were recording on Tuesday so I could watch AEW on Wednesday. I was like, works out perfectly. So, it's just me for now. So, we were talking about wrestling. The TNA Emergent show was great. Nick Nemeth and Josh Alexander did a 60-minute Iron Man match. They went the full 60. I think it came down to 3-2 pinfalls in this Iron Man match. So, yeah, shout out Nick Nemeth, the wanted man. He's just really, really doing his thing. This whole resurgence since leaving WWE. It was weird JBL showed up. Don't know what that's about. Yeah. What else we get to see? Yeah, AEW's All Out just happened. That seemed crazy. Shout out Daniel Bryan. I was certain that it was over. His career was over. But he pulled it out against Swerve. Didn't see that coming. Great match. Yeah, I love Daniel Bryan. I love this run that he's had in AEW. What's up, brother?
I got so excited. I guess my laptop just like tapped out. I have no idea what just happened.
Hey, that's okay. I've just been talking to myself this entire time. I just kept it going. I just kept talking about wrestling. I was like, all right, well, it's just gonna be me for now.
Awesome.
And,
Love it.
I give review of TNA.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, we're back, and thankfully it's still going. It never lost that connection, so that's awesome. Hey, that the first time for everything, right?
Hey, we learn, you know. Hey, it's the power of pro wrestling. Okay,
it is.
That's what it is.
Not everybody can handle it, and that's how I feel now. Is like when I've basically like let go of the toxic people in my life, and so everybody either knows that I'm a big pro wrestling fan, and they're just like, yeah, that's your thing. Or they're also the fans with me. Exactly. And like I had a buddy that was like, hey, All In is Sunday afternoon, like you guys want to come over and we'll just order it and we can all bring some pizza or whatever. And so like we just have gatherings, and I think the last time I saw him was the last time we got together to watch wrestling. It might have been WrestleMania. Like that's the like cadence that I've got with buddies now, and it's great. Like we could not talk at all between pay-per-views, and because I'm not calling them premium live events, because I'm paying to view it even on Peacock. Like I have to pay for Peacock, so I'm still paying to view it. But like it will go without talking in between events, and then suddenly we get together and it's like we've been talking every day up until then. And it's just like, all right, I need you to fill me in on this because I'm behind. I haven't been keeping up with any of it because I just have had life happening and going on. So what's like, who are your top three right now?
Whew, okay. Let's see. Obviously I've been so into this Daniel Bryan run leading up. I've really been into Swerve. I really love Hangman. This isn't top three, but let's see. Top three. This is hard, man.
I'm coming at you with the hard hitters. I can give you mine to give you some time to think, even though you'll be listening to mine and probably get distracted. Ricochet is always going to be my answer.
Yes.
And I lost my mind when he showed up. Because I usually try and stay away from the like rumor websites and stuff so that it's genuine when I see a surprise or whatever. So I love that he's in AEW. I feel like he can get way better exposure, and them pairing him with some of the luchadors that they've already got is just going to be clutch. But like, also I want to see him and Aleister Black just like tear the place down. That's the match I want from Ricochet. Yes. I also love Swerve. And you'll notice a trend if you have been watching enough different companies. I'm a huge Lucha Underground fan.
Okay.
So Ricochet was Prince Puma in
Yep.
Lucha Underground. Swerve was Killshot in Lucha Underground. And I love Brian Cage, who was just Brian Cage.
Wolverine.
The Swolverine, baby. But like, so when we
Better.
went to who better? I mean, not only is he a comic book fan, God, he'd be fun to have on the show. Not only is he a comic book fan, not only is he jacked and stacked and just freaking like, holy shit, dude. But he's so good. Like, he doesn't just rely on hard hitting punches because he's a big body guy. He also can fly. He also moves quickly. He's great in a team. Like, he's great. So give him a solo push, Tony. And that's all I'm saying.
And he's got decent cardio for being as big as he is.
Yeah, like dude is easily 350 of just straight muscle.
He would melt a cup.
Yeah. And yeah, no, he's keeping pace with Darby Allin. And like, I love when they put him in there with just the like super lightweight luchas, because he does such a cool job working with them to like not only show that they look awesome and put them over, but like some of the crazy, ridiculous stuff like Cesaro used to do, like way back when he was in the Indies, where he would just get in there with like a 60-pound dude and just like throw him like a pizza. Like Brian Cage can do that with like a 200-pound dude because he's just so damn strong.
It's kind of scary.
So
all right. So my top three would be probably Ospreay, Swerve. If we're sticking to AEW, Ospreay, Swerve, and possibly Pac. I do love the House of Black. I love all of like Malachi Black is probably one of my like favorite wrestlers, both when he was Alistair in NXT and here. And I love how he's been able to flourish. Brody King, Buddy Matthews, love them. Christian Cage, oh my lord.
Dude.
Yeah. I can't pick three, but yeah, Ospreay, Swerve, and then it'll probably be, Pac or Christian Cage, because Christian Cage is just
he's so good at being an asshole.
So good. So yeah, I'm loving what Ospreay's been doing. I love Jay White. I'm a big Bullet Club fan, obviously, Too Sweet, woo woo, so hopefully whenever they get back, the Bang Bang Gang, Juice is great. Juice Robinson. I love everything he's got going on. Tony Storm has been killing it.
Yeah. Her Timeless Tony.
Timeless Tony is fucking great. So yeah, man, big AEW fan, big wrestling fan. Yeah, dude.
Great.
I can't get enough of it.
Well, anytime you need to talk wrestling, you just hit me up because I'm always down.
Well, yes.
So that's officially the end of my list of notes. However, that's not the end for you. At the end of all of my questions, I always like to just turn the table over to all the creators that I have on, just to say anything that you might want people to hear. It could be something about you. It could be about Kinetic Comics. It could be about Shade. It could be about Pac. I don't care. The content doesn't matter to me as long as you have space to just let anybody that is listening or watching this hear what you have to say. And so I'll stop talking and let you go for it. The floor is yours.
Man, first off, thank you for having me on here. I had an amazing time. Like, anytime I get to like nerd out about pop culture, it's great. I appreciate you for creating this platform. It's super cool. It's super you, and I love that. So yeah, man, this has been a great time. I appreciate you for having me on. I can't wait to do it again. And for everybody listening, just go create something. If you want to create something, go create it. You've got that in you. We all want to create, and we feel so much better when we are. I promise that I am so much happier now that I am expressing my creative energy. And I think anybody that hasn't yet would too, so go create something, find something to nerd out about and double down on it. It's cool to be a nerd, whether that's about punk rock, pro wrestling, comic books. Just find something you love and you're passionate about, man, and rock out.
I love it. Everybody has their thing, and not everybody's thing is the same thing. And that's totally okay. Because again, it's 2024. Like, not everybody has to love superhero comics, because there's mystery comics, there's noir comics, there's like slice of life comics, there's manga action, super crazy karate comics. There's all types of comics up there, especially like in the indie scene. And it's not just, you know, one person or one scene or one country even that's making cool comics. Like, they're all over the place. And it's the best time to be a nerd. Like, it is the best time to be a nerd. So thank you for hanging out. Before we go, we got to take a YouTube thumbnail. I take a screenshot with my guests so that you can portray yourself how you look, instead of me trying to find a spot where you look like you're smiling or something. So let me get my keyboard shortcut. And then, all right. All set?
Let's do it.
All right, 3, 2, we're taking 3 of them. All right, there we go. Cool. All right, hang on after I click the little red button, and then I got some logistics for you. But thank you so much, dude, for hanging out. This was a blast. I had a great time. I look forward to staying in touch and keeping up with all things Kinetic Comics, reading more and more issues of Shade, getting further into the punk rock world that you've got of Bandito Red, and just everything else. Danger Squad is coming. Right. Super stoked to get Eric's book in my hands, because it's so much fun. It's such a fun book. So I love what you're doing. I love the space that you're giving to indie comic creators to come along and join you in this trip. And I just hope that you find nothing but success in the future. So that is going to be it for this interview. We're out of light. Thank God for a bright computer screen. So what is a good podcast without a good tagline? That's going to be it for this interview, punks. Now go do what's good for you and create some indie comics. Don't just read them, create them. We're out of here.